Seattle Mariners just got swept by the basement-dwelling Baltimore Orioles. That team of blonde-haired white boys somehow took down the Seattle Mariners. Joe and I are going to, unfortunately, talk about this series and kind of what happened and where Dan Wilson and the rest of the team went wrong. We're then going to talk about a trade that was proposed by Bleacher Report that was, bad. It was pretty bad. A lot of people were saying they think that might be what it costs, and I wholeheartedly disagree. We'll talk about that. I'm going to then get into my Operation Overreaction, which is probably not going to be a fun one today. And then we'll talk about this Los Angeles Angels series coming up starting tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 197 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. This is the David and the Sean episode of the podcast. Both of them bought some of our merch off the Fourth Wall Shop. So we appreciate you, David and Sean, for buying some of our stuff. Send us some photos of you in it. And I'm here with Joe, who is apparently going insane, which is kind of how it feels after watching that game and that team. Joe, where are we at?
1,000-yard stare is directly where I find myself after watching the Mariners get swept by the Birds. Homie Davis at work, my coworker. I walked in on Monday. He said, Joe, and then, Davis, I apologize. I'm going to air you out here. He said that this series against the Birds needs to be a sweep. Well,
it was, David.
You got your wish. Unfortunately, we just end up on the wrong side of history there. Bad series, bad baseball team on both sides. I hated it every single second. I don't like baseball sometimes. It's not fun. I wish you could just only experience the good instead of having to experience the bad, because this series was just not good at all. You start off game one losing 5-1. You give up 13 hits to the Orioles, where they're just not a good offensive team. They have not been a good offensive team all year, and George just continues to stay too much in the zone. Sure, it was only 5 innings, 2 runs, but it was 8 hits. It's just there's too many damn hits on this baseball field. You know what I mean? Like, it just that set the tone, it felt like, for what was to follow for the rest of the series. And I wish it didn't feel that way. But as soon as we lost game one and like George looked like that on the mound, I didn't really feel all that confident with the rest of the series, given how the offenses look. I think the pitching they did better. It's just the offense continues to let us down.
Rowdy Tellez was the only person with an RBI in this game. It was a big home run off of the windows, which was cool to watch. Cool to see Rowdy get into one. But yeah, you mentioned George, 5 innings pitched, 8 hits, 2 earned. He had a 30-pitch first and a 20-pitch second, and that was pretty much all she wrote. For it shaved off a couple of innings from him. Edward Bizardo pitched in this game, gave up 1 run. Jackson Kowar came out, pitched 2 innings, looked pretty good, struck out 1. And then Colin Snyder came in. I think this was the last game he pitched before he went on the injured list. 1 inning pitch, 4 hits, 2 earned runs. Snyder's now on the injured list with a right flexor strain in his forearm. Same thing that Logan Gilbert went on the injured list with. The Mariners did get some hits this one. JP went 3 for 4, but not enough as the Mariners fall in this one 5-1, including giving up 2 runs in the 9th inning. That brings us to game 2 with Emerson Hancock on the mound. You didn't really know what you were going to get out of Hancock in this one, but he pitched well. 5 2/3, 2 hits, 1 earned. He walked 2, but struck out 6.
Yeah.
Gabe Spire gave up 1 shortly thereafter, and Carlos Vargas gave up 1. And in this one, that was enough for the Orioles, as the Mariners once again had no offense.
Yeah, the offense just been stinky, bad, putrid, no fun, no good vibes, just bad. They need some sort of reinforcements. They need a spark plug, and they're just not getting anything from anybody, it seems like, unless Cal Raleigh hits a home run. Yep. It feels like. If the stigma about Julio being the engine, Cal Raleigh is the entire vehicle. Like, he is the assembly line production. He is the parts that get ordered and shipped to the factory. Like, he is every aspect. He is it, because the rest of the team just hasn't really been able to pull through. A 3-2 victory for the Orioles in this one. Cade Povich has been bad.
Yeah. Cade Povich has been pretty bad, and the Mariners just unable to take advantage of some pretty bad pitching, which kind of continued in game 3. Povich did go 5 1/3 in this one.
He just hasn't been good all year, and then the Mariners are like, hey, do you want a nice, good start to get you back on track, is what it felt like.
That's exactly what happened. In game 3 on Thursday today, Mariners lost this one 4-3. Another just a not fun baseball game. You know what I mean? Brian Wu went 6, but ended up giving up back-to-back home runs, which led to 4 earned runs. And once again, that was enough for the Orioles. You felt like you were in a good spot with this team, and Brian Wu going out there in the 6th inning. He'd only given up the 1 run. He's been your best pitcher so far. The bullpen pitched well in this one. Vargas, Spire, and Legumina, none of them gave up any runs. But the Mariners' offense was just once again putrid. They scored 6 runs in this entire series. Cal Raleigh was the offense. He scored all 3 RBI in this game. He had another home run to continue leading the league. J.P. Crawford has been getting his base hits, but that's about it. He was 2 for 4 in this one. Jorge Polanco finally hit a baseball, which was pretty fun to see. But overall, just another rough game for this Mariners offense. And that was just kind of the story of this entire homestand. The Mariners finished this homestand 3-6, and you get swept by the Orioles in this one. You lose 2 of 3 to the Nationals, and then you were able to win 2 of 3 versus the Twins, but barely.
At what
wins,
cost?
Yeah, both wins were walk-offs where the bullpen kind of blew. I mean, the entire homestand was kind of blown by the bullpen in the first few games versus all 3 games versus the Twins, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just a rough spot to be in right now.
The pitch, or just the moment you look at in this final game specifically, we don't need to dwell on it too much, but it's a 0-2 pitch to Adley Rutschman after a walk to Holiday, where it's just a cutter that just stayed about as middle as you can get, and Adley barely hits it out, bounces off the top of the yellow line over in right field. Like, that's a pitch that I don't think I've seen Brian Wu throw. Like, miss that poorly on a location or just like a pitch in general. Like, it wasn't a cement mixing slider, but if there was ever a cement mixing cutter, that was it. Yeah. And it was just an awful pitch. And then, of course, Gunnar, you mentioned it. They go back to back, which would give the Orioles the lead after the Mariners took the lead in the 5th off of Cal's home run. But just this, you like to look at bad games as individual things, and you'd be like, okay, we can flush it. How do you flush a series like this? How did you flush the Toronto series? Like, did they? They lost, the series of the Yankees subsequently after that. Like, what do they do going forward beyond this? I don't really know. I don't know how Dan pulls them out of this, because I don't know if we've ever seen Dan do that yet. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a big test, especially going on the road against a team that you probably should be, but the Angels have been playing better baseball than the last time we saw them. So I don't know what to think, like, going forward. Yes, the team is still above 500. Yes, the entire AL West has been a big steaming pile of garbage, and that's why the Mariners are still somehow sitting atop. Like, they're at the top. They are doing okay in that regard. But it's just, how long can you continue to get away with mediocrity before it catches up to you?
And that's something we've talked about a lot. The bill kind of comes due when you have as many injuries as the Mariners have had,
ad nauseum.
As many guys. I say that a lot.
The bill comes due.
As many guys kind of underperforming. Again, Polanco's been underperforming. Obviously, Randy's been underperforming recently. You got to go out there and do something to this team. Now, we've talked enough about DFAing Solano, DFAing Garver, etc. Mariners finally called up Cole Young. It might be time for them to go out there and make a trade of some sort, as we know we're getting into trade season. And while Ryan O'Hearn, Cedric Mullins, those kind of guys make sense, I would love for O'Hearn to be staying with the Mariners as they travel south. There was one trade that was mentioned by BR Walkoff, and it was a trade for Jarren Duran. And in this trade, the Mariners would get Jarren Duran. The Red Sox would get Bryce Miller, Michael Arroyo, and Harry Ford in this trade. So the Mariners number 4 and number 5 prospects, plus Bryce Miller, who was a top 30-ish player in the starting pitcher in baseball last year. And don't get me wrong, Jarren Duran put up an 8.7 WAR last year. He was fantastic. He hasn't been that guy this year. And neither Bryce hasn't been that guy either. So it's an interesting take to have. And then to think you're going to get 2 top 5 prospects on top of it. This year, in 63 games, Jarren Duran is hitting 274, 323, 423 with a 747 OPS and a 107 OPS plus. Relatively pedestrian. Yes, that would help. That would definitely help this team. But it's not really a guy that you go out there and make that kind of big trade for. Duran's had one really good year, and that was 2024, where he hit 285, 342, 492 with a 131 OPS plus. Otherwise, he's been all right. He was fine in 2023, had a couple of down years in 21 and 2022, but Duran is a guy that also we can say the Mariners, from what we've heard, do not really care for his how they think he would perform in T-Mobile Park. They don't think it would translate well. You would have him through 2029, so he would be your right fielder or left fielder for years to come. But honestly, I just don't think I think this is a massive overpay.
A massive overpay is interesting. I think given the control that you get with Duran and what you saw out of him last year is the reason why I don't think it's necessarily an overpay. I do think that the Red Sox are coming away the winner of this trade if it were to happen. So I guess in that conversation, I do think the Mariners are overpaying, but I don't think it's as big of a margin as maybe you're making it out to be. But I also could be thinking recency bias in regards to a guy like Bryce Miller, who hasn't lived up to the hype from last year, and that could come back to bite anybody that would trade a player like Bryce Miller for a guy like Jarren Duran. But on top of that, you're giving up Harry Ford, who is major league ready. Yes, they've got Carlos Narvaez, who has been a very good catcher for the Red Sox this year. I don't know how he would fit in as part of the equation there. Michael Arroyo also hitting very well so far down in the minor leagues, down in Everett. He'll probably make his way to Arkansas as well. Shot up, he I think took maybe the biggest leap last year as far as where we kind of thought he could be, and then he managed to pop 20 homers, and it's like, oh, maybe the power's kind of legit. Arroyo is an interesting player. Ford he's just a major league ready player as well. So like you're giving up two major league players and then a guy for Arroyo who could be a utility player for years to come beyond that for 3.5, 4 years of an outfielder who could put up perennial 4 or 5 and at a peak an 8-win season. Yes, that would be very, very valuable to this team. The part that I don't like about this trade is that you're selling Miller on a low, which feels like it's just the wrong time to trade him. For the Red Sox, it might be the wrong time to trade Jarren Duran as well in that same conversation. Are they trading him on a low? I don't necessarily think so. This year it hasn't been as good offensively as you said, but I mean, he's still, I feel like, on pace for about a 4-win season.
Yeah.
I would put it, which isn't bad. It's just when you're getting half of the production from a WAR standpoint, it doesn't look as pretty on paper. So I think you'd need the offense to pick up, obviously, for it to be worth it. Would I be mad if the Mariners did this trade? I don't think I'd be mad. I would still think that they lost the trade overall. What it would signal to me is that they're probably trading Randy in the offseason.
Yeah.
And that Duran would take over left, and then they'd go with Robles and Raley and Wright for 2026. That's what I think that they would do. So they'd fill out the outfield with Duran this year, and then they'd trade Randy in the offseason, would be my assumption of how the trade would go down. I don't know if Miller's the pitcher I'd want to trade in this. I don't know if... But also similarly, like, if he is hurt and he never kind of comes back to that form that we saw last year, maybe it is the right time to trade him. It's a weirdly nuanced trade in the sense that we don't know what Miller's future holds, but you can say that about any trade. Like trading Jonathan Clase for Jimmy Garcia last year could be a franchise-altering trade for either side. We don't know. Maybe Clase is going to be a perennial 60 steal guy and elite defense eventually in 3 years. And maybe had the Mariners made it to the postseason, Jimmy Garcia closes out games. Like, there's so many like what ifs that can happen in these theoretical trades. And it is BR walk-off, which is, I think, the main aspect of why it's an immediate like, oh, haha, point and laugh at the dummy kind of a thing. But, I mean, known pretty critical person online, Colby Patnode, said that it was a pretty close. Like, he's like, yeah, people make fun of BR walk-off, but like, this is probably the best one that they've done. I don't think it's super unrealistic. I don't think I would want to do it if I'm the Mariners. I would maybe try and not have to include Harry Ford because I like Ford's future with the Mariners, and I also don't know how he fits super well with the Red Sox with Narvaez. And Wong, Connor Wong, like you don't need to worry about Connor Wong. He's not. Carlos Narvaez is their catcher for here and now and for the future, it seems like. So altering that trade package, I don't know what makes more sense, but I think if Arroyo's the headliner as far as prospects are concerned, and then you give up like a 15th, like a 10 through 15 guy, I'd feel better about it in that way. And I'd still be okay with trading Miller. trading any of the pitchers right now seems like it could be like organizational malpractice given the health concerns and just overall performance.
I think it just leaves you with too many holes, right? Like, let's say Cal gets hurt. Is Mitch Garver your catcher the rest of the year? I mean, you're screwed if
Either
Cal
way,
gets hurt.
yeah.
You're gonna lose 100 if Cal gets hurt. So, but like your organizational catching depth is Harry Ford. Blake Hunt stayed with the team. Blake Hunt's nothing, right? I mean, Josh Caron's still plenty of
Yeah, like could you trade Michael Arroyo and Josh Caron instead?
right.
And I'd probably be more likely to do that.
Same. I would absolutely be more likely to do that. I think that the hard part, like you mentioned, was that like you're trading Miller on a low, and I don't know. I kind of agree that Jarren Duran, his offensive profile doesn't fit T-Mobile Park. He has led the league in triples last year. He's leading the league in triples this year. If you look up T-Mobile Park, right? Jarren Duran hit 48 doubles last year, which led the league. If you look up T-Mobile Park's park factor, T-Mobile Park gave up the second fewest doubles in baseball last year and the fewest this year. T-Mobile Park is not a doubles ballpark. His offensive profile doesn't fit here. Now, he did pop 21 home runs last year. Obviously, there's kind of a little bit of a weird short like foul pole in right field.
Both sides.
Yeah.
The Monster's 280, and Pesky
Right.
Pole is also not very deep.
Like, it's a pretty big hitter's haven. Jarren Duran just screams to me the guy that you would bring over and he would immediately not be able to hit. He might be able to lay out a few singles and whatnot, but overall, I don't think that he's a good fit for this team. And I think that when the Mariners are built so heavily on pitching, you have to bank on a Bryce Miller bounce back. Because like I said, he was a top 30 pitcher by FIP and by WAR last year for starting pitchers. Like, yeah, Jarren Duran was an MVP 8.
Yeah.
Can he repeat that? I feel a lot more confident in in Bryce Miller repeating what he did last year than I do about Jarren Duran coming over to Seattle and repeating what he did last year. You have to base it on both of last year's guys' stats. And sure, if this was last year, I'd consider it. But at the same time, if this was last year, you probably don't need to give up more than like Bryce Miller and Michael Arroyo.
Yeah.
You probably don't. But because because Miller's been so bad, they're throwing Ford in there because he's been so hot right now. I don't know. I don't see how this trade works out at all. And for the Mariners, with all the health issues that they've had, I don't think that it makes sense to trade Bryce Miller.
I don't think that's an overreaction at all. I think that's a pretty sane take. But you did preface that your Operation Overreaction today was not going to be a fun one. Are we mentally prepared? Am I mentally prepared for what you're about to say?
No.
Oh.
The Seattle Mariners will be sellers at the deadline. Randy Arozarena will be traded at the deadline. Bye, Joe. See you later, man. With the way things have been going over the past 9 or so games, this team has the chance to have to be sellers at the deadline because we've talked about it a lot recently. This team could either be 10 games up or 10 games below first place, and I wouldn't be shocked either way. From what we've seen from this team recently, I have zero faith in them coming through and making sure they're contenders at the deadline. So and maybe they're just soft sellers, right? Maybe they sell off like, 1 or 2 guys. Maybe if Rowdy's playing well, you find someone who wants a first baseman, you trade Rowdy. Like, you consider trading Randy, etc. But I think that with the way things are going and the point of Operation Overreaction is to overreact, I think the Mariners will be sellers at the deadline.
I hate it. I really hate it. And the reason why I hate it so much is because the most easily moved asset for teams that are sellers are really good relievers. Because there's a huge buyer's market for the teams that are in contention. If the Mariners trade Andres Munoz at this deadline,
There's no way.
You really don't think so?
No.
After what we saw, like a guy like Tanner Scott get last year for half a year.
Andres Munoz, his contract is just too valuable to this team.
Yeah. Which is why a team will pay a good amount of like stuff and like capital for it.
But the Mariners don't need prospects necessarily.
Yeah, I mean they could just get ARB controlled guys.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely teams that could make packages that would entice the Mariners, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't want to see it happen. Again, I probably would throw up. Trigger warning. But it's just like,
You weren't
no,
supposed to say that before.
it doesn't matter. I mean, you're the one with the Operation Overreaction making everyone upset in the comments.
True.
How dare
Trust
you?
me, I don't want it to happen.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the easiest avenue for them to trade from is the bullpen. That's just every single seller at every single deadline. If they have a valuable arm, it is getting shipped out.
Yep.
Right? It makes sense that we saw the Mariners, as you said, even if they're soft sellers, they were soft sellers in 2023. What'd they do? They traded Paul Sewald.
Yep.
Sure, they got Ryan Bliss, Dominic Canzone, and Josh Rojas, where Rojas did something for a little bit, and Dom, who knows, and Ryan, who knows, right? And Sewald now at this point is kind of cooked a little bit.
Bad.
Sadness. It's no longer time for Paul Sewald to pitch. Trading Munoz wouldn't surprise me necessarily, given how big of a buyer's market there always is for relievers, especially those at the top end of the market. Other spots I could see them trading from, trading from the rotation doesn't seem so far-fetched either. It's just, it depends on if they are really out of it, how high are they trading in the rotation? Are they trading Kirby? Like, would they trade Kirby to, like, really reload on ARB guys? Because Kirby, Miller, I don't think they'd trade Wu. I think they'd want to hold on to Wu. Kirby and Miller, given their control and what they've shown in previous years, yes, this year in the conversation we just had about Duran, does not really provide a lot of backing to what I'm about to say, but I think that they could get the Mariners some decently helpful position players in certain spots that they need help in. Hancock has pitched well enough, like you said in your preseason prediction, that Hancock will pitch well enough to be a trade chip at the deadline. Is that more so the avenue you think that they'd take?
Yeah. I don't know.
Buddy Cook.
Someone cooked here. I don't know. I could definitely see them trading Hancock at the deadline. I don't know if they expect him to continue to do as well as he has. His fastball velo is up.
Yeah.
But, like, at what point and it also depends on what they do with the draft. Do they go one of the 3 top 10 left-handed college pitchers, and Jamie Arnold, Cade Anderson, and Liam Doyle? Like, those guys could be up literally middle of next year.
Yeah.
Just with how good they are and how polished they are. So, like, at that point, are you willing to trade? I think that if a George Kirby trade happens, it would be in the offseason.
Yeah.
I don't think it would happen mid-season. I could definitely see an Emerson Hancock trade mid-season, though, if everybody's healthy again, right?
Yeah.
There's no point in keeping him in AAA. You have Logan Evans. You'll have guys coming up behind him, especially with, Durangelo and Sloan. If you don't think that you're in it, you don't really mind if you have to call up Evans for the rest of the year if you were to trade Hancock, if someone else was to get hurt.
Or Miller.
Or Miller, you know what I mean? So that in that regard, I think that we could definitely see Emerson Hancock get traded. He's got plenty of, value left in terms of his contract. I think that it's certainly something that could happen. I don't want this to happen. I want the Mariners to go on a tear. And you know what? We might do this podcast again on Sunday after the Mariners sweep the Angels, and we'll be talking about, something completely different. What is that? Oh,
No,
that's a sweep. Oh, got it.
It looked a little suspicious.
A little bit. There are other teams that are still on the cusp. We've talked about the Diamondbacks, right? Eugenio Suarez. Could the Mariners go out there and get him again? He would be great. He's been great so far this year. He's not hitting for a high average, but he's crushing the ball. He's got like a 120-something WRC plus. Like, obviously we know Gino plays great defense. Ben Williamson has been fine. He's struggled a little bit, but that was to be expected. If you call up Gino, could you maybe move Ben Williamson to more of a roving role and then play him around the diamond? I don't know. I don't know if Ben Williamson could play anywhere else, but just with the way this team has played over the past month and a half or so, it's very, very hard to say what they're going to do at the trade deadline. When we get to July or even towards the end of June, we'll still do trade videos, right? About how to make the team better, because it's our bread and butter, man. Roster baiting's our bread and butter. We'll also, talk about the draft a little bit as well as we get closer, because that number 3 pick is going to be huge for this team moving forward. But huge. It's going to be huge. I think that we'll just have to wait and see how this series versus the Angels goes. And that one, the Mariners don't have an off day. They're just flying straight down to Anaheim. It's going to be Bryce Miller versus Kyle Hendricks, the professor. Hendricks has been around forever. Bryce Miller, we'll see. His velo was down at the end of his last start again, down to 91 towards the end of his outing. Like, if that continues, he needs to go on the injured list.
Yeah, I'd love to sit here and say I'm confident about this pitching matchup, which is your bill comes due ad nauseum version for me. Play the team in front of you kind of vibe. I don't know what to expect out of Bryce Miller. I don't know what to expect out of George Kirby, who is the Game 3 starter in this series. I don't know at this point, and I don't like that version of the Seattle Mariners. Whether, like, even when the team was bad, we knew they were going to be bad.
Yeah.
And we expected it. We don't expect Bryce Miller to not be able to finish outings and his velo to drop 3 miles an hour through an inning and a half. We don't expect George Kirby to go out there every single start and just not get misses. Or when he does, he is a pitch to contact guy, he's getting hit harder and they're just finding holes. It's not a fun version of the team to watch, especially over the last 25 games. The Angels currently sit at 28-33. We are only 4 games ahead of them in the standings. They were really far back, and we were pretty far ahead, and they have now closed the gap. Not that they're a super big threat. If there's a team in the West that's a pretender that is not named the Athletics that has gone 1-20 over the last 21 games or something silly like that. Dude, it's been bad.
Been that bad?
Yes.
Wow.
They started, yeah, dude, it's bad. Bad. I don't know if it's actually that bad, but it feels that bad. That's pretty incredible. The Angels are pretenders, but maybe the Mariners aren't so far away. It's like the pulling the the Fred pulling the mask off them, and then it's just Fred again. Yeah, just underneath it, like pretenders in the American League West. Because at this point, I mean, even the Astros are not no team in the American League West looks good.
Mm-hmm.
We all look like a bunch of the Billy Bean 50 whatever of. And then there's us. That's what the rest of the MLB is, and then the Mariners are, and not even the Mariners, the American League West is, and then there's us. Is that me? What the hell? There's an ad, and it just kind of looks like me when I had hair, when I had longer hair. I mentioned the last 25 games for the Mariners from May 9th until now. May 9th marks the start of the Toronto Blue Jays series, where the Mariners obviously eventually get swept. They have the 25th worst offense in all of baseball with an 89 team WRC plus. The team that we're playing in those last 25 games, they're 10th in all of baseball with a 105 WRC plus. Those Los Angeles Angels are. Team ERA, Mariners are 23rd with a 4.25. The Angels, a 4.23. The Mariners are not too far off of these Angels over the last 25 games, which is a very bad thing to say out loud. It's not something that you ever want to be, unless it's the mid-2010s Angels where you've got Pujols, you've got Trout, you've got Hamilton, you've got the actual good teams where maybe CJ Wilson's making a start or two every once in a while. You know what I mean? Those actually decent Angels teams. They're not that in the decade of the 2020s, ladies and gentlemen. You do not want to be compared to them. And yet here we are. Here we stand with a 3-game set that very well could define the first half of this season for the Seattle Mariners. If they lose this series, I don't know how they pull themselves out of it. This is the series to pull themselves out of whatever rut they're in. It has to start off on a good note with Bryce Miller against Kyle Hendricks, who Hendricks is not overpowering. Yes, he is a professional, has been doing it for a long time. You need to go out there and win game 1. You need to set the tone.
Yeah, you find yourself in game 2 versus Jack Kahanowitz, who made his major league debut versus the Mariners. With Luis Castillo on the mound, Castillo's been fantastic this year. I think a lot better than a lot of us expected him to be. He's been, behind Brian Wu, your best starter. Kahanowitz throws the second most fastballs in all of baseball, just behind Brian Wu. The Mariners need to be geared up for the fastball. Look for, Cal Raleigh to maybe have a couple home runs in this series, maybe 1 or 2 in this game alone against Kahanowitz, because he's going to get a lot of fastballs. That's that game I feel pretty confident about. I feel good about Luis on the mound with Jack Kahanowitz going for the Angels. It really is game 1 that is going to decide how I feel about the rest of this series. Because if you lose game 1,
you think you're losing game 3?
I kind of feel like you're losing game 3.
It's not as strict of a pattern as that, the causation without correlation, whatever. But Bryce Miller and George Kirby starting games 1 and 3 versus Hendricks and then Tyler Anderson, both guys who are Hendricks a bit more tenured, but Anderson's been a professional for a while as well and got that big contract for the Angels for a reason because he was a very good pitcher with the Dodgers and then that first year with the Angels as well. He's a lefty. I want to bring Justin Turner back because he hit a home run. He hit 2 home runs against him last year.
Oh, that's right.
Maybe Mitch Garver will finally get his first home run against an actual pitcher in 2025 against Tyler Anderson. He likely makes that start with no off days in between. I mean, Cal's probably DHing, but Garver behind the dish feels not super out of the realm of possibility, especially also with George on the mound.
Yep.
Garver was George's personal catcher for a large part of last year. Mm-hmm. Maybe they go back to that to try and give George not like a bit of familiarity because obviously Cal has caught him plenty of times, but something to right the ship for George Kirby because he is about as important to this rotation getting right as Logan Gilbert, in my opinion. Yes, you've seen Gilbert be successful. The difference is that Kirby, even getting back to just like a 3.7 ERA every single time out, will be all that more valuable because of how poor he's been. If he can just regulate, that's awesome. He doesn't need, it'd be really good if he could live up to his hype and his potential that Logan Gilbert has very much so represented. But if he can just regulate, that would be a very big boost to this team and just the team's pitching health and the pitching depth in general and confidence every single time out that, hey, we don't have to burn 4 guys in the bullpen tonight because George is starting a game.
I think that the way I look at George Kirby's season so far is similar to how Emerson Hancock's gone, right? He had a rough few starts to the season, but then after that, he kind of righted the ship. He's been going out there, giving you 5, giving you 6, and giving you a chance to win every single time you're out there. He's going to fill up the strike zone just like George, and I think that if George Kirby has a similar, obviously, Hancock got sent down and all this other stuff, but if George has a similar kind of rise after what he's seen at the start of his season look like, then I'm fine with that. But you really need him to get right in this series. You kind of need him to get right in the last one, but it's like, ugh. And then Bryce, we talked about it already. If he's still down to 91, put him on the IL and call up Logan Evans.
Yeah.
Especially because, and just to, put this out there, on Monday versus the Diamondbacks, that's June 9th, 6-9, LOL.
Nice.
Logan Gilbert is traveling with the team. That would probably be his scheduled start, and it on roster resource has him listed versus Merrill Kelly in Arizona. With that being said, the Rainiers also play the Sacramento River Cats that day in Sacramento.
I thought they started on the 10th.
Oh, you're right. It is the 10th.
Yeah.
Well,
regardless.
Either way.
If Logan makes another start, it would be on the 10th more than likely against Sacramento.
Yeah.
But if he's with the team and he gets activated, you're looking at 6-9 for
G5.
Yeah, for Logan Gilbert.
So Logan might be coming back, and at that point you can kind of reassess where this team is at. I think that once everything gets righted with the ship, this team might be able to go. But there's just so much in flux right now with the offense and how hit or miss the pitching staff's been. It's really hard to say, but I think this is going to be the series to turn it around. We'll just have to wait and see. We appreciate you guys watching this episode 197 of the Hit It Here podcast, and go Mariners.